And I went to this man. There was probably about a tenth the number of people in his living room that there are here tonight. There was maybe 8 or 10 people, maybe less than that. And when I had an opportunity to speak with him, I said, I feel like I've been seeking as long as I can remember. I've been seeking for some kind of, I don't know what, but seeking for something. I said to him, what is in the way of finding? And he looked at me like this was about the most idiotic question anyone had ever asked him. Like, has this guy got brain damage? He looked at me and he said, what's in the way of finding? Seeking, of course. Which, of course, only led to greater confusion for me. So a little later on, I tried to be a bit more direct in my pleas for help, and I said to him, I've come to you because I've heard you're really good at this stuff, and I really want to become enlightened. What's it going to take? Other teachers who I had asked the same question, of whom I'd asked the same question, would give me answers like, become enlightened, please chant this mantra. Or do this yogic posture, or participate in this course. But my good friend, whose name was H.W.L. Punjab, he was a retired army major. He was in the British Army before the British left India in 1947. Very military man. So I said to him, I wanted to become enlightened, and he said, okay, first answer a question. Who, he said, who or what is trying to become free? Find the entity, find the person who is seeking freedom, and then I will give that entity the freedom. But first find it. You understand? This was 1991, not quite 20 years ago. And I went back to my hotel room with this question. Not much to do. He had meetings in the morning. I didn't have much to do the rest of the day, so I sat in my hotel room. And basically, it was like going nuts. Because I lay on the bed, and it was as though these thoughts, which had been held together as a mind, now somebody pulled the kingpin out, and they were just flying in all random directions, So blah, 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 NASCAR racing, toothbrush, memory of school, girls, yes, more girls, no. It just went on like that. And it became clear that the mind had been held together in some arbitrary way by some kind of agenda of getting something. But as soon as that agenda was questioned, and the strong agenda which had taken over my life was this thing about enlightenment, but it's the same is true. The mind is generally used as a machine to focus on getting some outcome, you see. Let's make more money, yeah? Let's buy more real estate. Let's make some more money. Let's find the one. What?
Have a family.
Let's have a family. Yes. So the mind is generally used to focus on trying to get what you want or trying to avoid what you don't want. When the kingpin is pulled out of using the mind in that way, it continues to operate, but now it's revealed to be essentially insane. It's just... So I sat with this insane machine for about a week. I would go see this old man who kept looking at me and chuckling like he realized that he had precipitated insanity and was enjoying it. And in the afternoons and evenings, I was just watching this firework display of insane thoughts. And finally, after about a week of this, I didn't have any of the nice, open realization you were having just in the first few minutes of our meeting. I was just going nuts. And after about a week of this, I wrote him a little note. In the evening, before retiring for the night, I wrote him a little note and I said, please, I realized that what was in the way of whatever this thing was I was still seeking for was the ego. Nasty, grey, slimy, smelly ego. So obviously the point was to get rid of the ego, but I didn't know how to do that, so I wrote a note and I said, "Dear Punjaji, please get rid of the ego." I signed it, and I folded up the note, planning to give it to him the next day. I went to bed. I didn't really sleep. I wasn't really sleeping during that period because this zoo was going on. But I kind of rested, and maybe 6 o'clock in the morning, the resting period finished, and it was time to get out of bed again. And you know what happens when you go to bed with a very strong thought? If you go to bed with a strong thought of maybe income tax, got to do the taxes, got to do the taxes. When you wake up in the morning, what's the first thought you have? Yeah, taxes, you see. So I went to bed that night with the thought, got to get rid of the ego, you see. Upon arising in the morning, what was the first thought that came? Something important to do today. What was it we had to do today? Oh yeah. Get rid of the ego, you see. So for the first time, there was a genuine, innocent, a really innocent looking. It was like, got to get rid of the ego. Okay, where is it? And it was as though awareness just went backwards to try and find this entity, this thing, this me, to finally, cut its head off. And the impulse to go back and find it, like he's described tonight, just went on and on and on and on into empty space. And as far as the inquiry went to try and find this entity, as far as it went, there seemed to be an infinite additional expanse to travel. And that was the end of seeking. It wasn't so much that infinite awareness had been introduced into the picture in that moment. It was simply the realization that infinite awareness is our nature, but it is obscured by the constant referencing of a separate entity that actually does not exist. Because we keep making up this story about me and me and me and me and me, the obviousness of infinite awareness is simply overlooked. Punjaji asked me to return back to the United States, in fact to Seattle, where I was living at the time. And as he put it, to share this secret, he said, go and share this secret with your friends. And so that's what happened. I went back and we started to have some meetings a little bit like this. It started with 8 people, and then 17, and then 30, and then 100. But it was different back then in 1992. Because if I was to have guided an inquiry in the same way that we had tonight, an inquiry into who or what is experiencing this moment, you would not find anybody back in 1992 in a few minutes saying, yes, I went to check and there's just infinite awareness. When asked who is hearing the sounds, back in 1992, people wouldn't say silence. The collective consciousness, we may not have noticed or tracked this exactly, but the collective consciousness was different. And I'm not only speaking now on my own behalf, but the book that Brandy so kindly mentioned, The Translucent Revolution, I interviewed 170 renowned experts in this field. People like Eckhart Tolle, Byron Katie,